Breaking just moments ago, Trump has announced the U.S. launched a bombing raid on Karg Island, a strategically vital hub often referred to as Iran's oil lifeline. The strikes notably did not destroy the island, something experts say would have driven gas prices up even higher. Joining us now, David Rohde, MS Now national security reporter, and Miles Taylor, former DHS chief of staff and founder of Defiance.org. David, lay out for us the significance of Karg Island, and specifically my big question here that I would have asked you before we came on camera was Trump says that military targets were struck, but why not effectively try to take over the island and control the oil coming out of there?
If he had done that, it would have been a major escalation. 90% of Iran's oil exports go through this one tiny island. It's about 5 miles long, about 20 miles out into the Persian Gulf. And so this is a Trump pressure tactic. This is, I'm going to strike all the military targets on this island, but I'm not going to all these refineries and other things like that. I think he's just trying to, again, pressure the Iranian regime, which the administration seems to think is going to work. More bombs and more pressure, and they're just going to cave. I don't think this strike will force them to cave, but that's why it's significant that he did not take out all that oil infrastructure. And then most importantly, if he took out all the oil infrastructure, that would drive up oil prices.
The president was asked about Karg Island this morning by Fox's Brian Kilmeade. Let's play that exchange.
Are you thinking about taking Karg Island, where 90% of the Iranian oil goes through? And what do you think about, do you remember that interview and that school of thought?
Yeah, but Brian, I can't answer a question like that. You shouldn't ask it. You shouldn't be even asking it. It's one of so many different things. It's not high on the list, but it's one of so many different things. And I can change my mind in seconds.
Well, Miles Taylor, it's one of so many different things. It's not high on the list, but we did just strike it this afternoon. I don't know if the president knew when he gave that interview this morning that he was planning to strike the island. He will have to answer that. Maybe he'll answer questions when he lands at Mar-a-Lago. But this is insane.
So, Simone, what the president is trying to do is he's trying to regain leverage. He's trying to do it desperately, but it's not the leverage he thinks it is. This would be like cutting off our nose to spite our face. And I'll tell you why. Because if we took out Karg Island, sure, it would devastate Iran's economy. It's 90% of their oil comes from there, but it would also devastate ours because oil is already soaring around the world, and it would surge worldwide if we took out this key supply line. And then the Iranians would feel like there was nothing left to lose. And in the realm of national security, we have a word for that. We call it stupid. We call it stupid because you then empower your enemy to let it all fly, to let everything go. And what this also shows to me is that Donald Trump has not changed since the first term. When we worried about him tripping over his shoelaces into a nuclear war, it shows he's still just that reckless. It shows that he's not planning for these conflicts. And also, I would note, Simone, we wouldn't be at this point if his team spoke truth to power. And I want to flag one thing. Earlier this week, the New York Times said that White House staff are scared. They are scared to tell the president how bad this situation is. We're on the brink of a great recession, the gravest terror threat possibly we've seen since 9/11 if this continues. And the White House staff are scared to tell their boss that he's playing Russian roulette with our lives and our livelihoods and our way of life.
Michael, as a former White House staffer, it is their job to tell the president the truth. The senior staff, it is their job to tell the president the truth so the president can make the decision.
That's true, Simone. In normal White Houses, the president would want to hear the truth. Mm-hmm. But this president only hears one thing in his head, and that's what they play to. And so, David, that brings me to, my friend Miles mentions Russia. The fact that this week the president had a conversation with Vladimir Putin that, I presumably on the record, but we don't know what the record is. Did you get to see you get the readout on that at all? No. So we're not sure, America, exactly what the president said. But I did take note of what Chuck Grassley tweeted about this particular effort by the president to lift those sanctions on Russian oil. Quote, temporarily removing sanctions for Russian oil is wrong move. Every dollar from sales fuels Putin's war and prolongs suffering in Ukraine. But it not only prolongs suffering in Ukraine, those dollars are also going to back channel their way into Iran. So what are we doing here? What is this president doing? Does he have any understanding of how the geopolitical circle of life works?
I don't know. I can't read his mind, but I would agree with you and Senator Grassley, which is, I think, a rare, or it used to be more true than now.
It used to be more in line, but he went the MAGA thing. I don't understand.
It doesn't make any sense, and it just says this strange trust Donald Trump has for Vladimir Putin. And again, it's extraordinary. Russia was feeding information to Iran that can be used to kill American service members, the locations of ships and bases and forces. And so it's astonishing that this is what he's doing with his chance to talk to the Russian president.